Welcome in. It's Thursday, October 10th with the EBDB Weekly Update. I'm your host, Tim Storles, and with me, as always, Brett Colleton. How you doing, Brett?
Tim, I'm stressed out.
Why are you stressed, Brett?
That 49ers game was not an easy watch. Jordan Mason got hurt. Debo came to the sideline. George Kittle went to the sideline. But it feels good that the NFC West is kind of the wild west right now, and I'm glad that we ended up with a victory. But that was definitely something stressful on Thursday night. But a lot of fun to watch, and also two really great jersey combos from both of those teams. I don't know if you're into the fashion of the NFL, but it was a lot of fun to look at. How are you doing today? How's it going?
Doing good. Life's been good. Staying busy. And that Seahawks-Niners game was not fun to watch from the other side. How many points could DK have scored if Geno could hit him on a proper target or silly penalties didn't call plays back? So that was really frustrating to watch. I was texting Danny Breslin in the middle of it, and he's like, I have Geno and DK in a league, and this is killing me watching this happen. Because Geno didn't look great. He was mediocre at best the whole game.
We'll get to the preview in a little bit, but it was tough as a Niners fan to be wishing for JSN targets and yards, and then on the other side, hoping that Jordan Mason, who ended up getting hurt, and Brandon Ayuk didn't succeed. But I will always take a 49ers W over a fantasy football win any day of the week. So very exciting from Santa Clara, California. I'm pretty excited to be a Niners fan right now, whereas the last couple of weeks has been pretty hard.
I'm sure Katie's excited too to get a win for you guys.
Absolutely, and a good day from George Kittle for her as well.
He's great. He's great.
Tell me a little bit about the about your Sunday experience. I mean, did you get up for the London game? Did you stay all the way through the Cowboys game? I have a fun fact for you if you're ready for it.
Oh yeah.
My fun fact is Dak Prescott is the first quarterback in the NFL ever to throw for an interception on consecutive days. He threw an interception on Sunday and an interception Monday morning. Absolutely incredible. The longest day of football maybe ever. How was your experience this past Sunday?
It was good. I didn't get up early for the game by any means, but with children, you're awake pretty early as it is. So I was always awake by 7 o'clock usually. So just turned football on. Rachel came downstairs. They're like, is football on already? What's happening? And I'm like, it's the London game. She's like, oh, okay. And she's not a big football fan. So it's just like, it just means that the game started 3 hours sooner than they needed to for her. It's just amusing for us.
The London game doesn't mean much to the wife who is not involved in the NFL schedule. My wife similarly struggled with that. But a couple headlines that I wanted to touch on. First and foremost, a defensive coordinator after my own heart, Robert Saleh, got fired from the Jets. How are you thinking about the Jets as we go forward? What are your thoughts on what this team is going to be in the future?
It was funny hearing him say that he won a chance to fix the team. And his record was so bad. You've had 3 years to fix this team. You started off poorly. It's not going well. Make the changes. So he's had plenty of chances, and just some people are great defensive coordinators and not good head coaches. And he seems that maybe that's what was happening. But the offense is bad. You gave me the fun fact for Dak. The fun fact for the Jets is that they've scored the same amount of points this year with Rodgers as it did last year with Zach Wilson through the same amount of games. The exact same amount of points, 93 points.
Oh my God.
That just goes to show that you think the team would be better with a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, and it's just not going well at all. And you wonder, is it the offensive line that's not doing stuff? Because, again, we'll talk about Brees later on as well. He's got 27 yards over the course of 2 weeks. So something's falling apart there, and that offense needs a revamp.
I'm just hoping this is good for fantasy. Garrett Wilson's a first-round pick. Brees Hall's a first-round pick. Aaron Rodgers deserves to be better than this. I would love for Robert Saleh to come back to the 49ers and consult on this defense that hasn't been good, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of talent on that Jets offense, and the defense is playing well. So maybe this is a good thing. I'm interested to see how it goes going forward, and maybe Nathaniel Hackett, who did get demoted from play calling duties, but is also Aaron Rodgers' guy. If they can figure it out and start to make some magic with the offense, that would be really cool. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is how you're feeling about the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson continued underperformance as a competent quarterback in the NFL.
I saw the stat. I can't remember if it's his total passes or just the ones to Amari Cooper, but 44% of his passes are deemed uncatchable. So it's just like
wow.
It's not even really a target that they'd have a chance on. You wonder what's going to happen with him. Like, he gets paid way too much money to get benched, but if the team wants to be halfway decent, you got to put Jameson. I mean, you have to at a certain point. Do you remember that you took a dynasty team because of him? You picked that team because, like, Deshaun Watson's really good. I'm going to have him for 10 years as my starting quarterback. Like, I'm excited about this team. And then immediate collapse. So I think it's actually your fault. You cursed him. Thank
you for that. Yes, I blame myself for Deshaun Watson being awful at football. That dynasty team continues to be awful because of his ineptitude at quarterback, and I am trying to build from the absolute dregs of that league in order to make it into something that is relatively reasonable on a weekly basis. Yeah, man, it's really hard being an Amari Cooper owner, and I told you before we started recording that I traded for Amari Cooper in a different league because the offense really wants Amari Cooper to be good. And whether or not Amari Cooper gets traded, like, he is a phenomenal wide receiver. He is super duper talented. He is great at the catch point. He's really good after the catch. And so it is just really hard to watch Deshaun Watson continue to throw balls 5 and 6 yards over Amari Cooper's head. But that being said, if Deshaun Watson gets more competent, or if the Browns are smart and decide that he is hurt in some capacity and switch over to Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is chaotic. He'll win you a fantasy week. He'll lose you a lot of fantasy weeks. But at least he does a good job of getting his playmakers the ball. And I would very much be excited if that change was made. Finally, I wanted to jump over to what I think is probably the biggest surprise of the week, is a Giants team that was without Malik Neighbors, leaned on Tyrone Tracy and Darius Slayton to beat a team that I think pretty much every football fan thought was going to be a surprise strong suit of the league in the Seattle Seahawks. What did you see from the Giants? Do you think this was a total fluke, or do you think that there's something there at the Meadowlands in order for Daniel Jones and his team to build upon?
I don't think the Giants are any good, to be honest. It's what team that, like, Malik Neighbors is fantastic. I don't think Daniel Jones is anything special. It just looks like the Seahawks aren't as good as we thought they were. They were bad tonight. They were bad last week, and they couldn't get things moving really either way. They kind of look inept in a lot of ways. And then I remembered maybe 2 weeks ago where the ball got snapped and nobody moved. The same thing happened today. So it's just like, it's silly miscues that shouldn't be happening. And then just Gino's getting back there, getting blasted by people because no one's moving and going for the ball. So I think it's more of Seahawks being bad than the Giants being good necessarily.
I think I agree. I think, honestly, like the Seahawks and the 49ers are similar in that the offensive lines are both bad. The skill position guys are very good, but you have to have somebody who gets them the ball. And Brock Purdy has been better than Geno Smith has been this year, and that is the only thing that separates those two teams. I don't know that the Giants are better than the Seahawks. I think they just got the better of them last week. And so it was a fun game to watch. It was super cool, especially the finale, the blocked kick return for a touchdown. All that is always one of the best things in football, to see a team kind of crest the mountain in that way. So it was super cool, but I don't think that the Giants are a good team. I think that the Seahawks are a competitive team, but maybe not a playoff team as currently constructed, especially in their division. So super fun. Always exciting to see an underdog kind of put the beat down on a team that they shouldn't have beaten, but not something that I think we'll see going forward. I think that Neighbors is probably the only person that has any fantasy value on the Giants going forward. Singletary's okay. Tyrone Tracy looks good, but is still young. Slayton had a great day, but not a long-term fit. Wandale, high volume, not much.
Wandale's good for PPR, but you're right. Slayton was a one and done with Neighbors being gone. And you probably saw the funny memes where it's like the Scooby-Doo unmasking, and it's like the joke that Slayton was just Neighbors wearing Slayton's outfit, wearing his uniform out in the field, because why else is Slayton scoring 2 touchdowns if it wasn't Neighbors? So that made me laugh absolutely. When I saw it. Let's jump into waivers here, and we'll talk about what happened this week. Again, it's like I feel like we're at a certain point where nothing really crazy is happening on waivers at this point. But it's Tucker Kraft had a bid of 13 fab or 19 fab for myself, 13 from Danny. It's just a wasteland in the tight end landscape right now. It's going after who's hot with a good matchup. We'll see what happens there.
I think before the year started, one of the big fantasy pillars was get good players on good offenses. And that's Tucker Kraft. If he is going to be the number one tight end in that group, a defense could take away all of the wide receivers. And if there's somebody who's underneath getting high PPR, Tucker Kraft broke out for a couple long runs as well. That's the kind of guy that you want on your team, especially with tight end being such a wasteland. So I totally get it. With you guys spending that sort of money, 19 fab, 13 fab isn't a ton of money for a number one tight end. I think that's a good investment, and I think you will have weeks where you are regretting that, and then other weeks where it totally pays out.
It was this week Dan and I play each other, so I kind of recognized that he also needed a tight end. He's playing Arizona, which is a great matchup, so it's like, maybe I spend a little more money and keep him away from my competition this week. It paid off in the end. What made me laugh, though, is you went Jalen Tolbert, but not on day one when people are actually bidding the most money. You dropped 12 on day 2. Just didn't. Were you hesitant on day 1? What happened?
I'm happy to be totally honest. I thought that I had put in a bid on Tank Bigsby, similar $12 fab budget. I think Tank Bigsby is awesome. He looked great. Not only were his big plays awesome, but he looks better on a per play basis than Travis Etienne does. So I was fully betting on that, and then when I didn't get him, I had 3 quarterbacks on my roster. I had hit big on Flacco, and then Richardson and Goff being on buys. So I was looking for kind of an upgrade, and I figured that I could spend an excess amount of my budget in order to get somebody that I think could be a plug and play person. So I acknowledge that $12 on Jalen Tolbert is a little bit more, but at the same time, I fully feel that I could plug him into a flex spot and he would kind of carry a week with somewhere between 6 and 12 points is kind of my expectation. So I didn't want to let that slip through my fingers. So I did spend a decent amount of money, fully understanding that I waited a full day because I thought that I was going to be bringing Tank Bigsby into my team, which we'll move on now. Max spent $8 for a quote-unquote backup running back, but a guy that looks pretty good.
I agree. Bigsby's looked good. You probably can't start him this week with the matchup, unfortunately. It'll be a tougher matchup for him. But there's definitely that season-long value. It
is interesting. I think Bucky Irving, Tank Bigsby, Braylon Allen, that group of rookies has all kind of solidified themselves, I think, amongst the fantasy community as this person should be getting more touches. They look a lot more dynamic, but it's hard for a team to move on from the ETNs and the Rashad Whites and the Breece Halls in order to get those guys more touches. So Tank Bigsby is a great pickup, but at the same time, you still have to deal with the fact that you must expect ETN to be getting the lion's share of the touches in that offense.
Well, and for a fantasy perspective, like beyond the whole waiver aspect of it, all these running backs who are good as backups are just siphoning points away from the quote-unquote starter on that team,
Yep.
Which just makes the running back landscape even more barren when you have people that aren't the bell cows, so to speak, and then have to share their responsibilities and don't get it all anymore. Like
Absolutely.
For fantasy purposes, we want one guy on that team to get it all because then it's easier to fill that running back spot. But if you're the owner of ETN or you're the owner of Rashad White, you can't be excited about what's happening there.
It's always a tough thing because you pick up a Tank Bigsby. I've had Braylon Allen on my team for a while. I'm starting him in a different league this week, and it's difficult because I think that Braylon Allen has a ton of talent, and I think the Jets understand that. But at the same time, like Braylon Allen, Tank Bigsby, Bucky Irving, those three guys have the most value if the guy in front of them gets hurt. And that's the hardest part of fantasy, like sitting there hoping that the guy in front of them has some sort of injury in order to get the person that's more talented the lion's share of the touches. So I understand you should spend these guys. You should have these guys in your lineup. It's the Jordan Mason, Christian McCaffrey effect. Jordan Mason has been great in Christian McCaffrey's absence, but it is morally hard to deal with in order to kind of get your guys the most value going forward.
One more thought before we move on to the Week 5 review. You mentioned Bucky Irving, and I think that my thought is that Rashad White is going to lose this job and that Bucky Irving's going to take it over. So I kind of thought this was happening for a bit once Bucky started slowly getting more work. So I reached out to Chris trying to have Bucky be the second small piece in there as the throw-in for a trade to try to get on board early and get him moved. And Chris was very adamant about not moving him. This is
honestly, same. I've been trying to figure out trades with Chris to get Bucky Irving onto my team because I think he's just better. Every year there's a rookie or a young guy that eclipses the main person, and Rashad White has been a fantasy darling for 2 or 3 years now, where he's just kind of been the stalwart person in Tampa Bay's offense. But man, if you watch Tampa Bay, Bucky Irving looks infinitely better on a per touch basis than Rashad White does. Let me touch on 2 things before we get to the Week 5 review.
Sure.
Lizzie bid $8 on Houston's defense, which plays Drake May's first appearance in New England. I think that's a great pickup. Rookie quarterbacks in their first start are always a little bit touch and go, so that's awesome. And then I know there were a lot of bids to get Younghoe Koo onto people's teams. Atlanta's putting up a ton of points. He is very accurate and has been very good. So, you and I have talked a lot about how special teams can swing a week every week. And so Danny putting him on his squad for only $7 is pretty awesome as well. So 2 really good pickups on waivers.
Which is funny because usually defense is 2, 3 fab at the most, and kickers is a 1 usually. So it was a little bit higher than I anticipated for both of them to go for. But again, if you want that team and you want the upside, sometimes you just got to do it.
I think it's really interesting. So there's a league that I've been in since senior year of high school, freshman year of college, and it started out that everybody kind of picked their defense and everybody stayed pat, and then over time everybody has started streaming defenses to where our biggest fab pickups on a weekly basis are the best defenses. So there was a defense, similarly, the Houston defense this week went for like $24. We have a $200 fab budget and went for like $24 because everybody is mindful of the fact that we are all trying to stream the best defenses. And then at like 7 a.m. Pacific time, we're all scrambling for those as well. So I understand that feels like a lot, but if there are a lot of people that are streaming, you kind of have to be mindful of the supply and demand when it comes to those defenses. So I think that's a really good pickup. I don't think that's a ton of money, especially if you're trying to stream defenses.
We have Turner Fab. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
Let's move into week 5 here. So let's start with the matchup of the week here. Lizzie versus Danny. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm hyping Danny up too much. I'm going up against him this week, so I don't want to talk too much shit, and jinx myself, because my team's just as bad in the shitter these days. But this one didn't quite live up to the billing of being the match for the week.
Yeah, I think it was.
Pause. I'm not doing my job here, Brett. Remember, we got feedback from Chris that he was not happy about not being able to see what we were talking about. So I'm actually just going to blow up my screen here, and we can talk through this. I mean, Chris, maybe one day I'll figure out a way to make it prettier for you. But on short notice for today, this is what you get. But here was the matchup on this one. 158 to 122 was the final score here. I'll let you give your thoughts, Brett.
Yeah, I think, what it really boiled down to is the Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen matchup. You can see it right at the top here. 33 points versus 14. That's a 19-point difference. That'll win you the week. We've talked a lot about Lizzie's team being really good. I think she had a very up and down week for her squad. Marvin Harrison didn't do great. Actually, I mean, Marvin Harrison and Antonio Gibson, but starting Roshan Johnson probably should have been one of our shaky starts of the week. He had 2 touchdowns. I think that was just a great group of picks by her. And Danny's studs did not show up. Brees Hall, 6 points. Jerome Ford, 7 points. I think that was kind of the downfall. So my feedback, Lizzie's team, still good. I like Danny's team, but on this week, he got the short end of the stick for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happened. At least Kelsey's back, so he doesn't have to feel quite as bad about his early round tight end. And then, great pickup with Trey Sermon coming off the bench to fill in for him. Looks like he's hurt, so maybe not playing this week, but it's a bummer it didn't pay out for him because that was a good pickup.
Yeah, you got to be excited about 9 catches on 10 targets for Travis Kelce, especially with Rashee Rice's absence. I know Juju had a big week, but Travis Kelce is the number one in that offense for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to the next one here. Next matchup was Max versus myself, and my team is broken. Just everybody's hurt and not at the right times, unfortunately. So Max took this one 111 to 96. It was seeming like it was going to be closer as the weekend was as the day was going along, where maybe it was had a chance on there. But Achane going out early in that first quarter with a concussion, then Leggett hurting his shoulder, never coming back. You just can't get 4 points out of 2 of your guys and expect to have a chance.
Yeah, you're totally right. I feel like every league has somebody that's snake bitten, and you just seem to be the guy. I still think Max's team is good. He underperformed, but if you have multiple people that are getting knocked out mid-game, mid-start, there's just no way to come back from that. So,
yeah,
sucks to be you, Tim. That's what we got.
They'll be healthy one day. Again, pieces back this week, and it's just a matter of letting it all come back together. Because the team feels good if it's healthy, but everybody's dealing with injuries. Every team's banged up. More and more people going on injury reserve every week, which is just absurd. But that's just kind of the life we're all living right now. But yeah, Max got a great team. I should have had a better chance there. Olave getting 3. Wicks, who was supposed to be great. I thought we talked before, and you thought that he was a shaky start, and we'll jump into that later as well. I thought Wicks was going to be really good this last week, and only getting 4 points out of him was definitely a surprise based on what he had been doing. So an opportunity was there, but Max's team stuck it out and won.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to Wicks in a second, but 2 catches on 7 targets. It's rough.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into yours and Chris's here. This one ended up being very close. You just barely edged him out by 2.5 points.
Yeah, man, I've had 2 Monday night wins. Want to give the shout out to Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson is a garbage quarterback and a competent adult in the room. Seems to be the ticket for my team. But what this came down to was Mahomes versus Kamara, and it was basically down to the last drive when David Carr was out. There was like a single screen pass to Kamara where he got all of like 7 yards and ended up making a little bit of a play. And then with Mahomes taking 3 knees and dropping his yardage, if there were any adjustments, it still would have gone my way. But, we've talked a lot of shit about Chris's team. If Mahomes can figure it out, that's one thing. But obviously, T. Higgins looks really good. DeAndre Swift has picked it up the last couple weeks. You said Wan'Dale Robinson is a big PPR monster. And, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback of this generation. So maybe there's something here, but it's really hard to come back from a 1-4 record at this point.
Absolutely. And his is the same situation as mine with Max's, where losing Aaron Jones probably actually was the difference there. Aaron Jones got out the game still with a hip injury. He's gotten way more than 6 points every week. And I imagine he would have done a lot more if he played the full game on that. My last thought on Chris's team is that I don't think Patrick Mahomes is the starting quarterback anymore in fantasy football.
So
Best of our generation, 100%. But he's just a game manager. You probably saw the same stats where he hasn't scored 18 fantasy points in over a year, or maybe November of last year was the last time he did 18 points. Yep. And if you don't get 18 points out of your quarterback every week, it's definitely a disappointment. So I saw, Chris pivoted this week to Geno. We'll talk about the next matchups. Didn't work out for him necessarily, but I think he's going to have to move off of Mahomes and just pretend you didn't spend a lot of money or a lot of draft capital on him at the beginning.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Danny and Travis Kelce. Like, you expect that person to be 20 to 25 and then put up some 30s and 40s throughout the year as well. And those guys are just coasting to the top of the AFC West and then into the playoffs and then ramping it up from there, which is not conducive for, fantasy production, which is tough because what they're able to produce, but at the same time, they're not here to try to support your fantasy investment.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's move on to the next one here. Talk about Alex, who continues to be top team in the league. We gave him a little bit of shit last week for his team not being very good and barely edging out the worst team in the league for the win. Comes back and puts up 152 points on Katie. He did a good week. 131 is a pretty solid performance. So it's just unfortunate she ran into Alex.
Yeah, man. I don't have much to say about this. I think both these teams are good. I think they both put up really consistent weeks, and there's not a lot to say about the performance of either of them. I think there's both of them. Maybe an Alec Pierce start swings this a little bit, but at the same time, I don't know that you could start him over anybody that Katie did. So it's a little, I fully understand if Katie is frustrated with her 1-4 record versus Alex with this 5-0, because those teams seem pretty evenly matched, and I think they performed pretty evenly as well. And it was a good one. It was a close one, but Alex continues to pull these out.
What's crazy to me is 152 points, because you wonder where it came from with Mason, Etienne, Jefferson, Godwin, all being below projections.
Yeah.
And he's got great performance out of everybody else. So I guess it just goes to show how strong your team is when you can have 4 of your better players not live up to what the expectations were and still put up over 150. So,
yeah.
Kind of crazy.
Rough go for sure.
Yep. And then into the last one here. Sam, you and I were chatting on this beforehand about the bad luck she's had.
Yeah, man, it's wild that Sam is 2-3. She's been putting up humongous numbers on a weekly basis. I mean, you look at the points for, she's 1 point behind Max, and then the only other people that are ahead of her, myself and Lizzie, who I think pretty much everybody would agree have the 2 most consistent teams. She put up an absolute crooked number. Her team performed super duper well, and it's just super sad that she came out with the L in this. You know, the only person on her team that really didn't put up the supposed number that they should have was Rashad White. We've spoken on him a bunch. And then if she had started Joe Burrow instead of Jordan Love, this is a whole different approximation. She is by far the number 1 winner in our league by points for. I mean, she outdid her projection by 43 points. That's absolutely outrageous. So, you know, I generally give out my Michael Scott God Please No award. I would love to be able to give that to Sam on a weekly basis because she continues to just absolutely crush it with these big ass numbers. But she had to take the L, and sometimes that happens. I'll pass it over to you. Anything to say about Brett's team?
No, I don't really want to talk about Brett's team. And we were a little bit late on time, so maybe we'll just jump straight into the advertisement here and get a word from our sponsor.
Sounds good.
Wow, that word from the sponsor was very fitting. If only the mute button was available every day, but we're just not that lucky. Let's move into the weekly awards here. So, stud of the week. I said I didn't want to talk about Brett, but then you chose Jamar Chase as the stud of the week here. So you can keep talking about his team.
I'll be happy to do so, and we'll just touch on this really quickly. He lost by 5 points in his matchup, and it took all of Jamar Chase's 41 points to get him there. We've talked about it quite a bit. Jamar Chase, that dude is incredible, and the offense continues to feed him the ball. After a couple weeks where the Bengals looked like they were never going to figure it out on offense, T. Higgins is racking up points. Chase Brown, Zach Moss, Joe Burrow had a great week, and then, you know, Jamar Chase is definitely the beneficiary of this. 41 points to lead Brett to a win, absolutely the stud of the week. I will jump right into our runner-up as well, because it helped a different Brett win their week, and I'll give it to Alvin Kamara. Not his best week, but did enough on a Monday night to eclipse the Patrick Mahomes number and bring me a win over your little brother, Chris Sorrells. So feel very good about that. And shout out to our runner-up, stud of the week, Alvin Kamara.
Feels weird giving him runner-up a stud of the week, but
I feel great about it.
It was important. I get it. I understand. And we choose the winners. He doesn't need to be a stud for anybody else. What we say goes.
We'll get to our runner-up duds of the week for exactly this opposite reason, Tim. So why don't you give us the winner and then walk us through our runners-up as well?
Breece Hall is going to take this 2 weeks in a row. He has not looked very good. I mentioned it earlier, 27 combined rushing yards the past 2 weeks. And if he's not putting up a touchdown, his number doesn't look pretty. Even in the beginning of the season, his numbers looked pretty good despite poor metrics because he was scoring. We'll see what the Jets do in terms of getting that offense turned around. But
yeah,
he's a guy that I would not be excited about having to start week in and week out. If I could avoid it, I would. Runner up here, again, this is near and dear to my heart. It's H.N. Leggett. Not true bust, but their injuries happening in the first quarter from both of them was just doomed my week. There was no chance at that point when you expect something out of both. And you wrote in here, I'm salty. Yes, Brett, I'm salty. Not happy about it.
Well, so the flip side of this is Nico Collins is now on IR. And at least by the time he left the game on Sunday, he was 15 points towards the week. Like that is very different than H.N. having 3 points and then you basically losing a running back slot. So I fully understand that you're salty because losing those guys midweek just absolutely torpedoes what you're able to do and the number that you're able to put up. Like in a 10-team league, you should be able to break 100. The only way that you're not able to do that is if you have injuries mid-game.
Yep.
Why don't you walk us through the Michael J. Fox shaky start of the week, and then I will get to our runner-up.
And we announced this one actually during our last recording. It's going to be Kyle Pitts. After a season of not performing and a straight 0 the week before, Alex still rolled him out to tune of 15.8 points. I think it was a fantastic result in terms of points. I still would be hesitant to start him as my main tight end going forward if I could avoid it. Doesn't seem like he's the main guy or the focus of that offense really in any way. I have a note here that he's the distant fourth in targets on his own team. So doesn't make for a recipe for success moving forward, looking at him. I'm going to let you talk about this one. You picked Dontavian Wicks as the runner-up. I think you and I just disagreed on what the outlook was there. So I'll let you share why he's the runner-up here.
Yeah, my thought process on Dontavian being the shaky start runner-up, because I totally agree. Kyle Pitts in another one of my leagues was put on waivers after week 4. And so I do think starting him and him succeeding was definitely a shaky start that panned out really well. My point with Dontavian Wicks is week 1, he had 0 points. Week 2, he had 11 points. Week 3, he had 0 points. Week 4, he had 24 points. And so on average, that's, 6 points a game, but very boom and bust. And so I totally understand Jordan Love is back. He gets a lot more of the offensive share when Jordan Love is there. But my thought was it's hard to trust somebody who doesn't have consistent production when you put them in. And I think that kind of was borne out because he only had 4 points last week. And if you were to start him again and he had 25 points, I'm still not sure that you would feel good about him starting the week after that. So I think he is the epitome of a flex play where you put him into one of those 2 flex spots. You hope you get one of the weeks that he pops. And if it doesn't work out, you got to kind of hope that your other team can pick up the slack for him.
That's fair. Just different approach and thought process for him, but
absolutely
all valid.
My Michael Scott, no, God, please, no player that I am the most scared of playing this week is one Lamar Jackson. He is terrifying. there is no situation in which he cannot put up a ton of points. If he is winning, he will, like, even when the Ravens run the heck out of the ball on third down, he is super scary from a fantasy perspective. They give him a lot of opportunity to do whatever he wants to do, and then especially when they are down and need to throw the ball, his opportunity for fantasy points balloons in a way that is very unique to him alone. We're seeing a little bit from Jaden Daniels. That was somebody that I put in this award a couple weeks ago. Last week, just to call it out, Derrick Henry was the pick here. After two 30-plus point weeks, he dropped himself all the way down to 17. We'll call that the mini curse because it was his third best week out of the first 5 weeks, but it was definitely not the two things that he was up to, and it took him a overtime 50-yard run in order to get him to those 17 points. So back-to-back Ravens, but Lamar Jackson is still a terrifying human being.
He's a great pick for that one. I would 100% be scared of playing him every week.
Absolutely.
You're right. You never know when he's going to go off. And it just goes off every week is usually what it is.
I think it's one of those things where, like, you always want to pick the consistent quarterback. And there have been years where Lamar has not been a great fantasy quarterback. But, man, so far this year and in multiple years in the past, he is really hard to deal with, seems to always win you the week, can put up, 25, 30, 40, 50 points in a way that most other quarterbacks can. So, yeah, really, really hard to see him on the other side of the matchup.
Definitely. For our next one, the Jesse Pinkman, he can't keep getting away with it award. I'm giving it to DeAndre Swift this week. He put up 20 points again last week. Again, given it was against Carolina. So I think we all saw that the opportunity was there for him to perform well. I just don't think he's good. And I don't think the Chicago Bears offense is consistent. So I'm looking for him to come back to earth here against Jacksonville. I think it's going to be a rough matchup unless he ends up with a long receiving touchdown. I don't see him getting it done on the ground personally. Last week, I bailed myself out. I chose Dallas Goedert last week, not remembering that he's on a bye this week. So we'll see if that curse is alive this week now that A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are back.
It will be interesting. So just taking a look real quick, his snap percentage over the first 4 weeks was 82, 97, 86, and then in week 4 it was 63. His targets were 5 for 11 was when he put up 27 points. It was 11 targets with 10 catches for 170 yards. So he's getting volume when he's out there, but he's also missing 2 pass-catching options. Mm-hmm. It will be very interesting to see what he does against this Cleveland defense in week 6. So I don't think he'll keep getting away with it. The bye week, I think, gives us a little bit of a cushion. Man, for my fantasy league my other fantasy league, I really hope DeAndre Swift keeps it up because I could really use that.
We'll find out soon enough. We're opposite. That's all. We're not going to agree on all these. You ready to move on to week 6?
I would love to.
Cool. All right. So again, Chris Sorrells. Get ready to see what we're seeing.
Bring it, Chris.
All right. Our first one here we're going to go into is Danny versus myself because it's on top, on my view. So we're going to go right into it here. This was already influenced by the Seattle-San Francisco game. And we mentioned it earlier, super frustrating watching DK Metcalf play tonight because the dude should have had 2, maybe more touchdowns that were inches off in the end zone or silly penalties calling it back. So getting just under 8 points out of him is sad when it could have been easily 30, 35 with the way things have gone. That's just saying no.
Yeah, absolutely. No. I think it's really hard when you watch a Thursday night football game. And, I mean, he had a touchdown that was called back by an illegal shift. That's, as a 49ers fan, love it. Really hard as a fantasy owner. I think this is a really close matchup. Allen Fields is really interesting. Robinson Hall feels kind of samey. Stevenson Justice Hill feels kind of samey. Figuring out how the Philadelphia offense incorporates both Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. Seeing if Jameson Williams can keep up his hot streak. Tucker Kraft and K. Doughton. Who knows? I don't know. This is going to be a super interesting one to watch. I'm really curious, and I feel like both of you guys really need this win, bringing you to 2-4, bringing Danny to 3-3, kind of getting back in the playoff mix will benefit both of you guys in a big way.
Absolutely, and this is the 2 lowest projections on the week, I believe. Or actually, to the back. Right now, Katie's lower projection, but it's a low match on the week for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I'm just gotta hope that we mentioned Nico's out for 4 weeks. You gotta hope that Tank Dell finally figures it out and does something here. But We'll see. It's gonna be close, I think, when it's all said on here. Looking at Chris and Lizzie on this list, I would be scared if I was Chris, because Lizzie's team is just smashing people right now.
I mean, as it stands, this may be the biggest blowout of the year. Getting only 14, similarly, like you said, getting only what was it, like 9 points from DK when there could have been a ton more. That only puts Gino at 14 points. And then if you look down this list, basically Lizzie's entire team is projected to just absolutely smash Chris's team. So we've counted Chris's team out before. He beat you. My matchup with him was super close. So maybe this team has some magic left in it. But man, especially the wide receivers, but the running back matchup, the wide receiver matchup, the flex matchup absolutely points to Lizzie just running away with this in an embarrassing way.
I would tend to agree. Let's flip over to Katie versus Sam. Sam's gotten the short end of the stick the past few weeks. It looks like things are going to change here.
I was going to say, man, and yet again, that's basically 320s put up by her Seahawks and George Kittle this week. This feels like an absolute W. You cannot ask for more than 20 out of Ken Walker, 22 out of George Kittle, and 16 out of Tyler Lockett. If Katie is somehow, some way able to come back from this, I'll be super duper impressed. But Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jaden Reed, you fully expect Sam to just run away with this in a huge way, especially after the performance on Thursday Night Football.
Right. And scrolling down to the bottom here, there isn't much else that could change things. Pollard's been good in some ways. He's going up against a terrible defense in Indianapolis. I just don't know how you overcome that deficit at this point unless you get some absolutely outlier massive games. So we'll see. I mean, Katie just has had bad luck all season, losing CMC before we even had 1 week and then just run into the wrong people on a more regular basis. So it's 2 teams that have just had the wrong matchup for most of the year.
You got to beat the person that's in front of you, and I feel like Katie has just been matched up with the wrong person more so than anybody else on a week-to-week basis, for sure.
Absolutely. On to the next one here, Brett Johnson versus Max. And Brett has a sizable projection lead right now going into it after this game, 141 to 116 for Max. Great game from Debo, your guy.
Yeah, honestly, A little surprising. My assumption is that is his best game of the year so far by, only by 2 points, but still, 18 in week 1, 18 in week 2, now 20 points overall. Only 7 points from San Francisco's defense. I think this will end up being a lot closer than the projection states. But it really boils down to, uh, Brett has 2 first-round running backs, and Chase Brown is not that guy. And so if Chase Brown continues to lead the Bengals backfield, that's great. But at the same time, there's a lot more dart throws, roulette wheel options on Max's team. But I think this will probably end up being the closest matchup of the week, just because Max's team has the opportunity for a lot of these guys to pop. I think you and I are both aligned that Max's team is really good, and though the projections say that he's about to get blown out, that will not be the case at the end of the day.
It's sounding like Malik Neighbors isn't available, though. Apparently, he hasn't progressed at all through the protocol.
Oh, really?
So he's not looking like he's in a good spot as of the reports from today. Apparently, being
Wow.
knocked unconscious on the field isn't a good sign, and it keeps you out of games longer than expected.
So we'll see. That will change
that
things quite a bit, for sure.
And then Spencer Rattler throwing to Olave. He says he's going to keep chucking the ball to him. But we've seen what happens with rookie quarterbacks. It doesn't always look pretty, especially one that wasn't taken early in the draft. So it might be another tough week for Olave. Max is, again, we talked about it, good team, but I think he's got his work cut out for him this week with the guys he has available on his roster. So that's tough to see. On to our matchup of the week here. We have you versus Alex. And this is for battle of first place, essentially.
Well, you talk about Spencer Rattler feeding Olave. What I am hoping for is that Spencer Rattler feeds Alvin Kamara, especially after Thursday Night Football. It is heartbreaking for me that Jordan Mason and Brandon Ayuk only tallied 14 fantasy points between the two of them, but the fact that JSN was able to get 10 points puts me in a really good spot to win this. But at the same time, I think this is mostly a coin flip. Chris Godwin's been really good. I don't know that there is any significant difference between these two teams. His running backs are absolutely stellar. Jordan Mason, Travis Etienne, James Cook, Joe Mixon, and I am leaning really hard on my wide receivers. So this will be a good one. I won't lie. I expect to win this, and me and Alex to be, locked into the top at 5-1 together. But we'll see how it goes.
I would tend to agree that I think you're going to take this one. I think the Dallas-Detroit game is going to be the deciding factor here. I just anticipate a shootout there. And having Goff in that matchup along with Lamb, I think that's going to be what really does it. And then Alex's team, Etienne hasn't been fantastic since the shoulder injury happened. He's been kind of giving up some plays to Bigsby like we talked about. Yeah. So maybe a bit of a tougher matchup for him there. And then it's just a matter of, is Mixon back? This day-to-day ankle sprain has now turned into 4 weeks of him being out, possibly. Yep. So do you trust him? That's the hard part.
Yeah,
so we'll see who Alex actually starts in the end.
There's every possibility that those two guys in his flex spot move to two new people. That Cook's toe injury and Mixon's ankle injury end up being, I don't know, Pitts and Ray McLeod, Pitts and Dubs. Dubs is in the doghouse. So, yeah, I guess what I will say is I am super thankful that I get to catch the 5-0 team on a week where he doesn't get to play Justin Jefferson. That is a huge boon for me in this space.
definitely helps for sure. It's going to be a close one, that's for sure. So we'll kind of see
should be fun.
how that one plays out here. Well, we're done with our week 6 preview here. I think we do have some toddler time now. Brett, you have some updates.
Oh my God.
So tell us the news.
Let me pull up the video, my guy. So Ben just turned 10 months as of yesterday. But
and you don't worry about pulling it up. I'm gonna load the video on my side and I'll share my screen.
Oh my God.
So you keep talking.
Yeah, so we have been pretty aware of, I mean, he's been pulling himself up to stand since he was about 6 months, and has been crawling with Ernest for a long time. There are a set of stairs in our house. He's been climbing them to the second floor pretty consistently as well. But I posted on Instagram, and I have sent this around to a lot of our friends. Today, this evening, a friend of ours came over and kind of pushed Ben to walk for the first time. And so, as Tim will show you here in just a little bit, Ben had his first opportunity to fully balance himself. And then, as you'll see, fully balance himself. And then he took a couple steps. In this video, you'll see him look up at me because I was freaking out. And then our friend Becca picks him back up, resets him, and then he walks over to my wife, Kate. And so it is very cool to see your child take their first intentional steps, and also similarly terrifying because you now realize that you have to chase them around, and the level of confidence that they have in their abilities to move quickly is wild. I won't lie, I do love the fact that he did this all while wearing a 49ers jersey during a 49ers game. That brings me a lot of joy. But it was super duper cool to watch him do this with confidence. Because for a couple weeks now, every time that we try to do this, he's able to balance himself, but he will immediately lose his mind and start crying and sit down on his butt. And for him to have the confidence to get excited about moving and balance and stuff is super rad. It gave me intense parent goosebumps, and then similarly it just made me absolutely terrified for what he is going to be able to do and what I will have to do. I have to do so much more cardio. I need to really work on my ability to move around because he just wants to do this all the time. It's very cool.
Well, maybe you won't be fat for long. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what
your
happens.
Kid all the time. And this video didn't sell it at all because the combination of us streaming this recording plus trying to load a video on Instagram here did not do it justice of him walking. So
I'll put the link in the chat for sure. I'm super proud. It's a really cool parent moment. I've been having a lot of fun sharing it with all of our friends. Yeah, it's awesome. It's definitely one of those proud parent moments, and I have really, really, really enjoyed it. And it's funny because he does not seem as psyched about the progress as I do. So we'll see how it goes going forward.
And you're going to realize this is one of those turning points in parent-child relationships where he's contained more or less for a bit, and now it's everything needs to be child-proofed. You can't take your eyes off of him at all because he's going somewhere, and he's going to whack his head on things if you're not paying attention. Oh my God. So it's a funny switch in terms of what you need to do. Not that you can be lazy with a child ever, but now like your focus has to be a lot more on him going forward.
Yeah, it changes the geometry of a baby in a really significant way.
It's exciting news. I'm glad we have a toddler time when you actually have exciting stuff to share.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was super cool to see him do it today. I'm absolutely psyched and similarly terrified because I am not nearly in the amount of shape that I need to be in to chase a toddler around. So see you on the treadmill, guys.
And that's going to do it for this week. We went through all the updates here, got Brett's fantastic news. So thank you for joining Brett and sharing with us. Good luck with your matchups, everybody, and we'll talk to you all next week.
See ya.